So I'm your host, Nathan Day. So I'm one of the co-founders of BTC Map. I'm definitely the least qualified person to talk about design up on this stage today. I am not a designer, but we do have some people who know much more than I do about this. So can we introduce ourselves? Ralphie, you want to start?
Sure. Good morning, all. Thank you, Nathan, for hosting. I'm Ralphie. I've been into design for 20 years, entrepreneur. For 10 years UX design, and after that, I wanted to give my talents to Bitcoin, obviously, because
This one.
that's a better one. Okay.
Yeah,
And so after that, I've decided to work on two projects. One is local adoption, so it's called Bitcoin Delta. So I'm founder of the Bitcoin Delta, so to Orangepill merchants, get that going, as well as being head of design for Orangepill app. That's a social app for Bitcoiners. And been involved in several startups. In Daedalus Labs in Suriname. It's very excited to be here. So thank you. Let's get it going.
Let's go, Ralph. Mo.
Oh, we passed the mic. Oh,
I think
it's easier. Yeah, my name's Mo Gashni. You can call me Mo. I'm from the Bitcoin design community. Been working only on Bitcoin for the last 3 years in UX design, mostly on research. The goal of the Bitcoin design community is to make Bitcoin accessible to everyone. And I'm also a founding member of the Bitcoin Design Foundation. And that's it.
Hi, my name is Moritz. Great to be here. Super cool. I'm working at Albi. Albi is basically your companion when it comes to Bitcoin payments on the web in any app. So it's a Lightning wallet that you can connect to a browser extension. And pay easily online on websites, but you can also connect it to any other mobile app, for example, and pay there. And yeah, so it's a consumer-facing product, so there are a lot of touch points, important things to decide on when it comes to design, UI, UX-wise. So hope I can share some experiences there.
Thanks, guys. All right, well, let's dive in then. So. Well, let's start with the basics. What is design, and what makes a good design? Does anyone want to take that to begin with?
So from my perspective, I'm not a designer myself, to say that up front. But I think, so I probably might have more like the user perspective here. For me, design makes a product or a service actually usable. So it helps you to interact with it from experience perspective, how things are aligned to each other, how the look and feel, basically. But I'm sure there's way more to it as well.
yeah, sure.
I think your mic's alive, by the way. Yeah.
It's live.
Yeah.
Are we live? No, for me, I think design is about a few things, about solving problems for users. In the context of Bitcoin, obviously working on products and services to solve real-life problems, to have these products people can use on a daily basis that are simple to use, that it's also based on design principles. Like I would like to work with design principles, not only frictionless design, and so get all the frictions out of the way of the user, and also emotion. Like what design does is actually changes the emotional state of a user from A to B.
Right.
Meaning, as a designer, you have the responsibility to know, okay, what actually is like, instead of thinking only about one use case, it actually, when you interact with a product or service, you actually help the user to go through a journey, and that journey can should be worthwhile, and it should be it should be helpful for the user. So also things like speed, for example, that's very important. Like people don't think as design as like a thing like speed is very important. We can design very cool stuff, but if it's just lagging in speed, then yeah, there are few. That's also a part of design, right? Like having the technical parts, like the baseline of the whatever we build. If we work with front enders, it's also a good cooperation to have a front ender and a designer working on a project together, so they know where to focus on. And there are a lot of like, so if you're very aware of those design principles and use it on a daily basis, then and also to evaluate like what do other products and services do wrong and right, and having good discussions about, for example, UX research, like okay, what do we think users want and what do we actually want? So maybe it's a good to pass it on to you, which is more of your subject.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'll start with leading with something a little bit controversial. I believe that design is not only what you see. Good design is, as Ralph said, what you feel. I think a lot of us make the mistake of, downloading a Bitcoin wallet for the first time from Apple Android store, and then you open the wallet and it looks so simple and you're like, great, this is going to be the best experience ever. But what you often find is that it's not the best experience. So, that initial enthusiasm of seeing something that's beautiful is often not really the truth. And for me, I think that good design in some way reveals the truth of how good, the design is. So for me, there's two layers. The first layer is how you see it, and the second layer is how you interact with it. And when you interact with it, it should give you back the interactions that you expect as a user. So if you click on a button, it should give you back the interaction that you're expecting to see. So I think those for me are really the two pillars: is what you see and the interactive design part for me is the most interesting. And I work primarily on the research side of things. And what I often come across is that the designs are not giving the expected experience to the users that they expect to see and feel.
Yeah. It's an interesting point about just keying in on the emotional side of things. And yeah, just anecdotally, when you have friends and family download Bitcoin wallets and you're like, there's this great magic internet money, it's going to be great. And yeah, the first experience being one of disappointment perhaps, or frustration, because there's lots of new concepts in Bitcoin, and perhaps that initial excitement comes into a negative experience, having a positive feeling to begin with. So I guess leading on then, does that mean that design is more important within the Bitcoin ecosystem than it is in the more traditional, app design and fiat world? Are the concepts in Bitcoin more complicated to design for and to get those feelings over to the user?
You want to speak to that?
You look to me. Do you want? Okay, fine. Sure. It is. One fundamental sentence, I think, would be that I think what Bitcoin wallets and products struggle to create is a sense of trust. And you're nodding your head as well. So Bitcoin has to build, the Bitcoin wallets and the designs that we build have to build a relationship of trust with the users. And that is a psychological relationship that's going on as the user is interacting with and the software. And the reason why it has to build that trust is because people don't trust this money that lives on the blockchain. You can't expect someone to trust something that they cannot see and feel. So it's just this additional layer of complexity that people are not even familiar with. So we do need to create that trust And I always say one sentence is, good design creates trust.
Right.
And good design makes the user feel empowered when they're using the software.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And even the language we use, like just wallets, it gives people the wrong impression of the thing they're using, in terms of having things stored within their app that aren't necessarily there. So I think, we have to be careful with the language we use in these apps as well. Right?
You don't think wallets is a good term for Bitcoin wallets?
Well, I think it comes with a whole preconception of kind of a traditional, more fiat application of that. That I think the worst terminology we have is not necessarily wallets, but in terms of hardware devices and hardware wallets and signers, and there's lots of complexity in Bitcoin that I think users have to. We need to somehow expose users to in a easy way, but that doesn't abstract everything, all of the complexity away from this new money.
We are also at Albi. We are discussing if wallet is actually the right name for what we offer, or is it just an account like that you are used to from a bank account, right?
Yeah.
Some people also don't call this wallet. Some people maybe do. But I think for us, design is a way. Basically everything that builds on a command line interface, right? I mean, we can also give that out to users if they want, and but this design makes it way more. A good UI and UX design makes it way more approachable to the majority of users ultimately. And with design we have a way to abstract technical shortcomings of Bitcoin today, to abstract it away basically. Right, because some things just don't work as nicely as you wish as a developer.
No.
But you cannot yet solve everything in a technical way. But maybe you can solve it in a nice UX flow, in a nice graphical interface, and that's where we leverage design most of the time.
Right. So that leads me on to the next area I wanted to sort of explore with you guys, which is the different design challenges with custodial wallets, such as Albi right now, and self-custodial solutions. And can we ever get to a point where the self-custodial UX is as good as the custodial UX? Anyone want to take a punt on that? Maybe Maurice from perspective.
So I definitely think we can. For example, I know wallets. I know non-custodial wallets that are way better to use than custodial wallets already today. So I think it's a proof that it works, right? They have definitely different challenges than custodial ones, but if you put enough effort in it, then you can do a great job there, I think. And on the first side, it might be easier to design a custodial wallet because it's from a technical perspective is less complex, right? That's true, but we also don't know how, for example, regulators see it in the future. And if you send a Lightning payment of a SEP, for example, to a person, and then you have to upfront in the app decide. Determine to whom you actually send it because of the travel rule, right? Someone needs to know that. And this is also not a nice experience. This is not the case yet, but that might come up. And this is a challenge that we are just not aware of today. And yes, at the same time, for example, at Albi, we are also working on a non-custodial wallet, and then we face things like how can we actually communicate things like channel reserve and commitment fees, and should we actually surface this to the user, or should we just hide it? Is that maybe easier? So there's a lot to explore, and these are things that we need to get better and work with some experts and do a lot of research on that, which are ultimately things that are not there. But I think designing and building non-custodial wallets is absolutely doable.
Okay, so we can get there.
I think so, yes.
Yeah. And my next question, I think you kind of already answered it, was when self-custodial Albi? Is it close?
We already have testers, so if someone else wants to test it, please approach me. Yes, I can onboard you today.
Okay, awesome.
Would love to.
So soon. And do you look at the distinction between custodial and non-custodial with the Bitcoin design community work, or have you dug into some of those differences in terms of execution?
So full transparency, I've only worked on open source self-custodial Bitcoin wallets over the last few years. And one of the projects that I've been working on the longest is the redesign of Bitcoin Core. So I'm working on Bitcoin Core app at the moment as well. That's a very beautiful project that's been going on in the Bitcoin design community for the last few years. But so I will be honest.
And that's moving from a quite low bar in terms of UX, right?
It is. And it's, by the way, it's a very beautiful process. If anyone here would like to contribute, please come hop into the Bitcoin design community and come join us, because we're building in public. Everything's completely open and transparent. So I'm a little bit biased in that aspect because I've only worked with self-custodial products. And then if I go to a conference, of course, and someone says, you know, download my custodial wallet, then I'll have a look. But I do think, I mean, the people that I get to work with every day, they are, I don't like to use the word geniuses, but I've learned so much from them in terms of, you know, I think the biggest challenge that most people bring up is that the self-custodial wallets are more complex. But the biggest thing that I've learned, especially since working on Bitcoin Core, which if you think of Bitcoin Core in terms of its complexity, you can go all the way down the rabbit hole. You can think of any single feature that you would want, you know, to exist, and then how do you place that in front of a user in a very simple way. And that's been one of the biggest design decisions we've had to make as we've been building it. And I still remember the first time I jumped on a Bitcoin Core call. This was like 3 years ago. And I remember listening to the developers talking to designers, and I remember thinking, what language is this people talking? Because this is not English. It was so complex. But, you know, being persistent and continuing to work on the project and just asking questions. Now if you look at the MVP, and by the way, we are doing tests on the MVP at the moment, so if you'd like to test, I'm also going to show that too. But we've had to layer complexity. So what I'm seeing now with self-custodial solutions is that if you layer complexity using design, it's very possible to make something that is complex appear to be very simple.
Okay.
There are solutions, and there are people working every single day who are jumping on calls and thinking about these solutions together. So I think it definitely has the potential.
Okay, so lots of optimism there.
Very much so.
Can I share an observation?
For sure.
So what my sense is that most of the products are the design process itself is, as I experience it, is much dominated by the developers, right? In the first stage, like for the internet, for example, when it first came out, like all the techies were involved, and they were like building stuff, crazy stuff.
The UIs look like a database is just thrown up into the web browser or something.
Yeah. And what I want to go there is like the order in which we build these products and services is like we start with building, and then we start adding a layer of like it also has to be usable and it also has to look nice. But what I experienced there is if you do the other way around, if you make a prototype first, like if you a clickable prototype, you design first on design principles, and then have all these stakeholders of the certain user groups or the product owner or everyone involved in the project, also the developers itself. Obviously, when you have to know, okay, is it actually feasible to build this stuff? But if you just don't start building directly instead of just designing this journey first, and then it helps to put the user needs first. So that's one thing I want to just put out there. Like if we do that simple thing, we just create better prototypes and validate it with users before we start building. it will help a lot of complexities and also a lot of time developers spend on it.
Yeah, so some upfront
instead
costs.
of creating problems, for example.
Yeah, upfront costs rather than bigger costs later when you have to
Yeah.
redesign everything, right?
So yeah.
Yeah. iterative.
I want to just, pan off what he just said because, I'm really trying to evangelize research in the ecosystem. When I stepped in my role, there was not any research being done.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, what's going on here? Like, how come they're not connecting with the people that we're building the applications for? And that's part of my role in the ecosystem. I really try to evangelize research and get more builders, to really connect with the people that they're building for. Because if we're not doing that, then we're building for ourselves.
Yeah.
And if we do want mass adoption, then we need to stop building for ourselves and get out on the streets, in the cafe, speaking to Bitcoiners,
Yeah.
asking them what they want, what they need, what are they frustrated with.
And do you see a lack of that user-led research in open source in general, or Bitcoin specifically? Because a lot of the Bitcoin projects are free and open source software that we all work on, usually for free, for the love in our spare time.
Yeah.
I think design often doesn't get enough attention within, that open source movement. Is that something that you see?
Yeah, I think design is research, but before I pan off there I just want to say, like, I've worked with so many, wallet teams, in the sprint capacity, redesigning the onboarding flow or such. But the teams are very small in open source Bitcoin software, but they make it work. Like, there's 3 people working on the team. I remember when Get Alby just started, there were 3 people just working on the team. And they make it work. So, very practically speaking, the teams do not have the ability to just, hire a researcher or, very often the front-end developer is the UX designer.
Yeah.
So I do, while it is a problem, to answer your question, not enough research is being done, the teams simply do not have the capacity to just hire 2 UX designers and there's...
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, if you think back to your commercial lives, pre-Bitcoin in Clown World, there would be teams of designers and UX people and web app guys, and so you move from that world into a world where of scarcity, right, in the open source movement.
Yeah, I think if we actually we're talking about wallets. That's one important touch point, obviously, for Bitcoin. We need to get that right. And then, but we have a lot of more. If you want to go on a Bitcoin standard and just having this, we can learn a lot from already products that are already out there that are using, that are based on. That are put a lot of research in designing it and building it, and we should just embrace those principles also for Bitcoin. So it really isn't that hard, I guess. So but the problem is also for understanding how can we move on to make Bitcoin more like you have this thing called conversational design, and so what I'm very much a fan of is building a relationship. You were talking about trust earlier, like how do you build this relationship with the user and actually see it as a conversation with the user, instead of being this static experience. It actually helps you to, for example, if you achieve the goal, you get a sort of a cool confirmation or a micro animation, or so it feels less static. Then the user, also is excited. For example, if a transaction, for example, works and it has a very cool animation, then people just also experience that. Like, okay, I can actually give an example of that.
Yeah, sure.
So we've been working on a project called Bitcoin Tabs. And it's where you tap a beer with your Lightning wallet. You scan a code, and it enables a button where you can tap your beer. And so one of the ideas is to, for example, to see that as a freedom beer. To rephrase it like, okay, we have this control system and we have this freedom system that's more aligned to Bitcoin values, right? And maybe we can design an experience around that. It's like we make it a freedom beer concept. So then the Bitcoin Taps itself becomes sort of an orange pill device. Like, oh, it really works. People see it working, and they start asking questions naturally, and they, instead of just firing away about Bitcoin principles and you need to read book and you need to study Bitcoin, but that doesn't work for the masses, I guess.
You want to come in?
I'm going to tag off again something that Ralph said, because it's the first time that I hear someone mention conversational design since working in the space, and I'm so happy that you mentioned that. It's music to my ears.
Okay, cool.
Because I do think that let's just look at the onboarding process of a Bitcoin wallet. When Ralph was referring to, and correct me if I'm wrong, when Ralph was referring to conversational design, it's like you're having a conversation with someone. You ask a question, you give back. It's a give and take relationship. So this is something that we as humans are very used to, because we have conversations with each other in that way. So if you take the typical Bitcoin wallet and you look at the onboarding process, very much of the time it is give, give, give. To give me your username, give me the password you would like to use, how would you like to back up your wallet? So it's give, 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 but with the wallet actually giving back, there's opportunities for wallets to give back and have that conversation.
And that helps with the trust thing we were talking about earlier. Yeah,
it becomes more human-like.
Exactly.
Yeah. And particularly when we're talking about money, which if there's no trust in money, as we know, then we get misaligned incentives and the whole show that we're trying to fix at the moment, I guess. Yeah,
that's a real window of opportunity, I guess, for Bitcoin design, especially. Like, how can we differentiate from other products and services in fiat world and make the Bitcoin design like more conversational? So that's one topic I like to explore also for the upcoming years. Like, how can we actually do that in a better way? Maybe also use like the prompts or like AI products use sort of interactions like that to make it very simple and abstracting all these complexities away from maybe don't use any like drop downs that are very make it more just cut the journey of the user, cut it down into maybe 20 stories, for example. The small interactions that are just designed to be to create to serve a certain goal.
Yeah.
So if you are aware of that goal, and it changes like the whole experience.
And this is that layering concept you were talking about, where you can actually get to very complicated things that are buried deep within Bitcoin Core, but you can do it in an intuitive way. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, don't be boring.
No.
That's also one thing I would like to say.
So are we?
If users are engaged, it changes everything, right? They started to 100%. Sell it to other people. Like, look at this. It's freaking amazing,
So before we move on to our kind of final topic, we've got about 5 more minutes. I just wanted to quickly ask, are you bringing the poker game back into Bitcoin Core as part of the redesign?
I'll answer that question with an invitation. So once again, in the Bitcoin design community, we're rebuilding Bitcoin Core app at the moment. I want to give a big shout out to all of the people who are helping to build Bitcoin Core.
For sure.
Bitcoin Core itself, the developers, they're doing an amazing job. And then also to the Bitcoin Core app team who's working within the Bitcoin design community. We're really trying to build an MVP that's as simple as possible. So I would give an invitation if anyone would like to test out the MVP, just come tap on my shoulder and then we'll set up a call. You'll be completely private.
Definitely.
And I'd also like to shill, we spoke about research, is that I've built something for the entire ecosystem to use. It's open for everyone to use. It's Bitcoin research I think it's bitcoinresearch.xyz. I'll have to look up the URL. That's amazing that I cannot remember URLs of products that I've built. But just reach out to the. I've built something that we call the UX Research Toolkit, and that's open for anyone who's building a wallet or a Bitcoin product to build. We guide you through the process that you can use to test out your products and your applications.
Yeah, the resources coming out of Bitcoin design community are amazing. It really gives people a leg up when they're starting. So yeah, excellent stuff. Okay, just finally, we've probably not got enough time to do this justice, but I wanted to talk about kind of mass adoption. And I'm not talking about scaling and L2s and how do we scale Bitcoin, the protocol, to 8 billion people, but from a design perspective, what do we need to do for mass adoption? And what is mass adoption in your view? Maurice, you want to kick off with that one?
So yeah, mass adoption, I don't know, like as my grandma also does not use any fintech products like finance apps today. So
yeah.
I don't think we need to design anything for her, for example. But really, for me, mass adoption is not like 8 billion people. It's more like all the people that do digital payments today, right? So and that's actually a lot less already, and I think that also lowers the bar for building products. That's also more feasible in my point of view.
So you think there'll be stages that we're designing for?
Yeah, building, designing, exactly. I think so. And if we look at where Bitcoin is already today, PayPal integrated Bitcoin, for example. Revolut did. Cash App has. There's a very big South American fintech currently also integrating Lightning even. So we are quite far, I would say, right? And so I think there's also a little bit of a different perspective in this discussion when we talk about designing. It's not wallets. What is a big bottleneck here? I think it's really also the apps that use Bitcoin. So I have, for example, talking about Extreme here, I have a super seamless wallet already today. Phoenix is a great example of that, for example. But what can I do with that? What can I do with the Bitcoin? What can I do with Bitcoin payments? I can go out here in Arnhem. Luckily, there are a lot of merchants who accept that, right? But that's not in every city, for example. Or why should I use sometimes Bitcoin on the web if there are not enough apps there? I think these are mainly the big challenges that we face in designing and creating good Bitcoin spending experiences and reasons there.
So it's more, we have the tools now, it's more about getting those tools in the hands of people adopting Bitcoin, merchants, users.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one other example is we recently integrated Bitcoin Lightning payments in uBlock or AdBlock Plus. So these are browser extensions that have like aggregated 80 million users. So theoretically, we can already bring this payment experience today to so many millions of people. But what are the reasons? Why should they actually do that? Why should they actually use it?
Right. Anyone else?
I'll piggyback off what he said. What are the reasons? I do agree with you as well, because you said we are going to go through these layers of adoption.
Yeah.
But coming back to the reasons is that I think for further adoption, we need to move away from thinking that Bitcoin should only exist on, Bitcoin wallets or on GUIs, but moving that into, the practical ways that people are really doing things. Like, if someone, I'll take a very practical example. You have these websites where you can develop your own course. I don't know, Coursera, for example. If Coursera would actually pay the course builders in Bitcoin, it would then activate them into using Bitcoin, coming back to the reasons. So I feel we need to go off of the wallets into the other platforms that
Yeah.
people are using in their everyday lives. And I think that's going to be a big challenge.
Yeah, I agree. And another example, recently with Nostr, if you look at Primal, for example, they're promoting themselves as a social Bitcoin wallet. So they're not a Nostr client, they're not a Bitcoin client. It's bringing people into Bitcoin that may have been deplatformed on Twitter. And maybe their first experience of Bitcoin is sending zaps to each other within the Primal app on the Nostr protocol. So it's tapping into new reserves of future Bitcoiners, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the terms of mass adoption, I guess it's also a thing like Bitcoin is going to be, if it works out the way we think it does, it's going to be integrated in like every product and services worldwide, you know. So the implications of that is it should be every interaction that users have with Bitcoin should be very positive, and we lead by example. If we show, okay, if people, Bitcoin should enable freedom, right? And people should, when they interact with Bitcoin, they should experience that point. It had to bring that point home, like freedom, because we live in a sort of a control-based system at the moment, and I think that's a very cultural thing to be very aware, and also for people to know, okay, we're moving from the one paradigm to the other, but it doesn't work overnight,
no.
you know. So, but it's very important to be aware of that. Also, like many designers aren't even aware of like what Bitcoin enables, like in product and design teams. So if we orange pill those designers, then they are going to integrate those principles in their products and services. We can't, as Bitcoiners, we can't design the whole world. We can't do it, but. Everyone is a Bitcoiner, I guess, if they just see it from a basic level. If they just go down the rabbit hole, in a sense, it's just a rational way of end up at Bitcoin is being that force. So.
Freedom or death, and if it doesn't work out, we'll all be living in tents down at the bottom of Arnhem.
Well, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.